Miss Ty here again. Today I'm going to talk you through the rules for direct speech and how to use the correct punctuation in written conversation. So the most important question, do you know what direct speech is? So we're going to use one of our texts from this week, which is The Witches, written by Roald Dahl, to have a look at some direct speech, and hopefully that will help your understanding. Direct speech is the spoken language which is written down as if it were an overheard conversation, and in direct speech we use words such as he said or she asked to show who's speaking to who, and that's really important. So we're going to look at an example of direct speech being used in the book, and this is a conversation between the little girl and her gran about the appearance of witches. "Why do they have such big nose holes?" I asked. "For smelling with," my grandmother said. And what's its purpose? Why do we use it? Well, the reason that we use it in our stories, that authors use it in their books, that Roald Dahl used it, is to make the characters believable and convincing, to make them come to life. Because what the characters say and how they speak, or their actions as they're speaking, tells the readers a lot about them. It helps us to infer whether they're feeling angry, whether they're mischievous character. So it really helps us in our writing to build or to create an interesting, convincing character. So being able to punctuate dialogue is correctly and accurately is really important, and that's what we're looking for in your writing this week. Because direct speech has its own special kind of punctuation, and if we look back at that piece of dialogue that we looked at earlier, "For smelling with," my grandmother said. So the inverted commas, you can see them highlighted in green there, they only go around the spoken words, the words that grandma actually said, and that's really important. Secondly, a comma is needed to separate the spoken part from the part telling you who is speaking, unless it's a question where you would need a comma mark, or unless it's showing emotion, excitement or rage, and then you would use an exclamation mark. So if you look at again that example from The Witches, another example from The Witches, "For smelling with," my grandmother said. So you can see we've identified the words Gran said, "for smelling with." Our inverted commas are around them, and we've got a comma inside our inverted commas, which separates it from the information who tells us who is speaking, which is our granny, of course. "Why do they have such big noses?" I asked. "No toes?" I cried. So we've got an example of a question there as well. So you can see the question mark, which is in red too, has replaced a comma. And we've got, of course, the girl is showing her amazement at finding out that witches don't have any toes. So we can hear that expression. We know we've got to use expression, bewilderment or shock, when we see an exclamation mark there. So, "No toes?" I cried. So remember, when we're separating the words actually spoken from who said it and how they said it, we must have some type of punctuation, which is either a comma, a question mark, or an exclamation mark. You can see that there are no full stops there. When we start with our dialogue, we never put in a full stop when separating our dialogue from who said it and how they said it, because our direct speech sentence has not been finished, so it can only be a comma, question mark, or an exclamation mark. That's really important. But if you were to start with who said it, then the rules are slightly different. You can see we began with my grandmother said, then you must have a comma, again separating who said it and how they said it from the direct speech. And you can see this time, because it's now the end of our direct speech sentence, for smelling with, we've got our full stop to end our sentence. The granny has finished talking. Remember, you can see again there in red, your punctuation comes inside the inverted commas, and that's really, really important, okay? Whether it's at the beginning of a sentence or at the end of a sentence, the punctuation always comes before you close your inverted commas. Another feature we always need to use when we're writing direct speech is a new line is needed every time we have a new speaker. Blue, I cried. Not blue. Their spit can't be blue. So this is really important. You don't need a new line here in this example, or if you write a similar example, because it's the same person who's talking. So you only need a new line when you go on to a new speaker. That's really important. New line, new speaker. If it's the same person who's saying a couple of sentences, then that can be a continuation. You don't need a new line. And that example hopefully shows you that clearly. Now, speech always begins with a capital letter. For smelling with, my grandmother said. So you can see you've got your inverted comma to open, and then you've got your capital F, your comma before you close your inverted commas, and then afterwards you've got who said it. And you can also include how they said it. And the second example, now look at this example carefully, because in this you've got a continuation going on, which if you look at the example, you'll stay here with me, she said, and I will look after you. So a capital letter isn't needed here because it's a continuation of the spoken sentence. It's where the sentence has been broken into or has been interrupted, where the author has put in the information of who's said, of who's doing the talking, who's speaking in the middle of that piece of speech. That's called split speech, and that's your extension for this week, using and correctly punctuating direct speech or split speech. Now we've got a little challenge here for you. We would like you, and this is all taken word for word from the Witches from our book. We'd like you to copy the following sentences into your book, adding the correct punctuation. So I'm just going to read it for you. There is no punctuation has been added. It is missing all the correct punctuation. Their spit is blue, she explained. Blue, I cried, not blue. Their spit can't be blue. Blue as a blueberry, she replied. Nobody can have blue spit, I whimpered, repulsed by the very idea. Witches can, she whispered. Is it like ink? I inquired. Exactly, she replied. So if you would like to pause the video now, we would like to see you using all of the rules that we have just explained to you, and see how you get on. So if you pause the video, and then we'll come back and we will have a look and correct together. Okay, so let's have a little look at how you have done. And of course, when our dialogue is correctly punctuated, then that helps with our expression, with our telling of the story, because we know exactly what words the character says, so we can kind of act them out and add expression as we need to. So you'll hear the difference in expression too. Their spit is blue, she explained. Okay, so we've got the words actually spoken by the girl in our inverted commas, our punctuation before we close our inverted commas, followed by who said it and how they said it. Blue, I cried. Not blue. Their spit can't be blue. So this is one of the sentences that we looked at more closely earlier. So where it is the same speaker, and she says three different sentences. Blue, not blue, their spit can't be blue. So you can see the first one is correctly punctuated, exclamation mark inside our inverted commas, followed by I cried. Now there's a full stop there because it is not where one sentence has been interrupted, like we talked about as well. It's three separate sentences, but because it's the same speaker, they can continue on the same line. So not blue, their spit can't be blue. And those two sentences are grouped together. Normal sentence, punctuation, inverted commas wrapped around them, and we've got our exclamation marks there for a bit of drama. Blue was the blueberry, she replied. Again, have you got your punctuation in the correct place? Nobody can aptly spit, I said. Witches can, she whispered. Is it like ink? She inquired. And watch out there, remember, if you're asking a question, you replace that comma with a question mark, or remember, if it's something dramatic, it's an exclamation mark. Exactly, Gran replied. And you can see there, even though in some of the examples we've looked at, we have used the word said, one of your activities is said is dead, because we really want you to focus on other synonyms for said that help to build our character. Whispered, inquired, replied, help to build the drama and the mystery in this scene, and this quite dramatic scene. And I know that in our live lessons we'll also be telling you how to looking at examples of how to expand your sentences to show what actions the characters might be doing as they speak, and using our lovely adverbs to help us as well. She whispered mysteriously, or she replied abruptly. So we'll be doing lots more of that. I really wanted this PowerPoint just to focus on mainly the punctuation. Okay, so I hope this has helped. Remember, as always, if you're ever stuck, just send us a little message, and hope you're all keeping well. Missing you all, and see you again next week on our live lessons. Take care, everyone.